Good morning. I'm very excited to be here and representing the NFC Forum. My name is Hans Reiskes, and I also am the co-founder of a company called Sequence Software, which actually specializes in NFC services to help make all these problems go away and start servicing the merchant community. And actually, I'm a longtime employee of Vivotech. I worked under one of our panelists here, Mohammed Khan, for many years, and I learned almost all of my retail knowledge from Khan. So I feel lucky to have the ability to actually address the problems that retailers face with NFC. I think the first panel was a fantastic call to action for this panel. So we had a very good summary of the desire for alternative payments to happen, the hope that NFC will happen, but in the right ways and ways that make it profitable and valuable to retailers. And so I think hopefully this panel can sort of address some of those challenges that were brought up in the first panel. I think what I'd like to have is the panelists introduce themselves and their connection to alternative payments, and then we'll jump right into some questions. So Didier, you want to start?
Yes, so I'm Didier Serra, one of the founders of Inside Secure. We supply chip technology to the industry, either contactless, NFC, or secure chips to the industry. We are glad to see that there is finally a lot of traction and demand for security, was mentioned on the previous panel, as well as how to better leverage NFC to interact with customers.
This is Mohammed Khan, President, founder of Vivotech. Vivotech is a software and systems company focusing on delivering NFC-enabled solutions. So, and I think, let me give you our three different views of what we do. One is many of contactless readers that are deployed here in the US, Canada, and many other countries. 70% or more, they are all from Vivotech, technology-based. So that's one of the very important, what I call paving the road that we have been doing over the last 6-7 years ago. Just to give you a perspective, we started in 2001, so it's a little more than 10 years of a journey that we have been on, really focusing completely on the mobile enablement for the retailers and for the payment industry. Number two area we do, besides getting all those readers out there and getting the acceptance network enabled for the mobile phenomena, is providing the TSM software as well OTA provisioning software, wallet component of the software. Basically, I use the word which Hans used, plumbing for the mobile network, for the mobile phone, so that it can address the payment industry, it can address the retail industry. Okay, so that's kind of infrastructure software that we have developed and that we provide to enable various different services, including Sequent software that they enable as well. And the third area, which is a very important area, one is to enable the point of sale infrastructure. Number two is to enable the mobile phone infrastructure. The third, extremely important, is the application platform. The whole of that, as we were talking about earlier in the retailer panel, is value-added services. How we can deliver more value, better value to the consumer to enjoy a better shopping experience, for example, besides the payment. So payment is an essential component, but at the same time is a great value that I believe that retailers are going to deliver to their customers, giving them better information, better decision environment for them to decide on the right products at the right price and the right set of services also. So this is the third area that we would have provided, is a software platform to enable those exciting applications.
My name's Richard Stegall. You're going to have to excuse me today, I'm losing my voice, but I'm CEO and founder of a company called Waspit. Waspit is a mobile payments wallet, and it enables people to load that wallet by linking their everyday bank account or check account, linking a credit or a debit card, and also loading it with cash at various points around the country. We're fully operational in the UK, and we're launching the service here in November this year. The ways in which a Waspit user can actually then spend their money or use their wallet is by using the MasterCard PayPass service, and the NFC readers that are out there. We link a Cirrus card to the account so that they're also able to access cash at the ATM networks. They can do the peer-to-peer transactions, and also a variety of text-based payments. The platform is then, the account is then managed via an online portal and also via a Facebook page. We're predominantly pushing this out to students, and the product has been very much tailored to what they want. And there's been a lot of discussion in the first panel about microtransactions. And yes, it is heading down that way, and in particular we find that students are finding it very easy to pull out their mobile phone and to pay for those microtransactions.
My name is Oscar Muñoz. I'm with Charge Anywhere, and we, in essence, develop secure payment applications that fit the needs of all type of transaction environments. So we support, in essence, your regular ECR, your POS, your, well, as it is today, your Verifone, or Verifone, right? The options that you have in the marketplace. But we support that, and we're also the perfect bridge for the newer technologies. Where we truly shine is in converting cell phones into secure payment issuance or secure payment accepting devices. And we also own the PCI Level 1 validated secure brain or cloud that makes that all happen by delivering those transactions securely in any type of data connection or any type of data protocol to whatever processor or host needs to take that transaction on the other side. So we support the old, but we're also the bridge to the new mobile technologies, including NFC, EMB, and your regular card swipe.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Mike Bausch. I am from Discover Financial Services. Discover is a Chicago-based company that operates a direct consumer bank and issues Discover cards, and also operates a global payments network branded as Discover Network in the North America and as Diners Club globally. And I am the head of e-business for the company. I'm responsible for the company's digital presence, websites, and marketing and delivery, but also the mobile channel. I'm happy to be here, particularly because we are, like most of you, invested in the future of mobile wallets and near field as a payments mechanism, and want to learn more about it.
So the good news is that we have a heavily biased NFC panel, and with an NFC forum moderator, I will try my best not to only have a discussion around NFC. But since I do have the pleasure of having the first question, why don't we start with the state of NFC? I mean, we've had a lot of conversations around NFC in the retailer community, in the mobile operating community, in the financial services community. A lot of us have got our first gray hairs from NFC, just saying. So why don't we just have the panelists that want to discuss where they see the state of NFC as far as consumers ready to walk into stores and use it. So Didier, you want to start?
Yeah, first, for me, it was not just gray hair, it was no more hair. So, so we have been working for a long time on NFC. The good news is that this is not anymore the question of, is it happening, is it going to happen? This is happening now. There is tens of models being launched. The industry has been talking about a million of units. I know some disappointment when recently the number came down from 70 million to below 40, but at the end, what matters? If it's not happening 100 of million in December of this year, it will be in Q1 next year. So the good news is that nice smartphones are coming with NFC capability. Hundreds of models are being built as we speak that will be launched next year. Mainly smartphone, but the smartphone will represent half of the device used by 2014 and 15, and most of them will have NFC integrated. So various platform and smart devices being put in the market, and that will be deployed massively in the coming years with NFC capability, offering the retailer, the consumer, the application provider with a platform to connect with their consumer, to securely connect with the consumer. It's not just about NFC, which is being integrated into smart devices, but security as well, which is a key aspect of this technology being integrated. And the secure chips being integrated into the mobile device could be leveraged over the NFC channels for convenience, as well as over other channels, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, or whatever communication channel which is being deployed in mobile devices. So the key aspect and all the effort we are working on as a secure chips suppliers is to make sure that the security is at the center of integration of this technology into mobile devices. I think the next big step for the industry and the retailer, the consumer, to be able to use the technology for the service provider, the TSM, and all the technology provider into this industry is how do we provide easy access to security services, to credential management, to this secure platform in the device, so the application developers can develop application, they can be inventive, not have to focus on the technology itself, but on services that they can provide consumer and retailers to use so they can better connect with their consumer more securely, more efficiently. It was mentioned, how you buy better, faster, smarter on the first panel, and NFC communication is one way to do that. What is again at the center is how do you do it securely using NFC or other communication channels available on the mobile devices.
So I think you've been hearing about NFC for like 6-7 years now. And the good news is finally, as Didier rightly pointed out, and it has started to happen. Not only Didier Secure, Inside Secure is shipping millions of NFC chips going to get embedded into the various different handsets, or many of the smartphone model, and it's happening as we speak. And by the way, in that regard, RIM, which BlackBerry guys, they have publicly announced that they're going to start shipping the phones anytime, maybe this month or next month or so. Just one of the players. But the second part which has started to happen is the infrastructure enablement, where not only the carriers, they are able to participate into enabling those phones along with the wallet component, along with the back-end infrastructure that enables not only payment, but also other value-added applications. So that has started to happen. VivoTech is involved in multiple commercial enablement of carriers, as well as group of carriers in different countries, enabling that kind of infrastructure. So it's good to see that we engage into those things. Then we were engaged last 3-4 years more in pilots. Number 2 aspect of enablement is happening with the card issuers. And VivoTech is engaged in multiple large card issuers. Some are obviously multinational card issuers, enabling their infrastructure so they can provision their card over there into the phone. Not only getting the plastic into your pocket through mail, that's what they do, but also now enabling them to be able to provision the card, not only their credit card, debit card, prepaid card, and every aspect of those things or so. That's the second area of enablement. Third is what I pointed out last, as I mentioned, over the last 6-7 years, we've been enabling the merchants collectively as industry. MasterCard, Visa, Amex, Discover, they all played a very important role enabling a lot of different merchants. To give you, there are 200,000 point of sale locations, merchant locations, store locations here in the US. They are enabled with the NFC technology or contactless reader. All of those locations, every point of sale in that location is capable of accepting payment from not only contactless card, but also from this NFC phone as well. So payment point of view, we have very well deployed, and to give you a number, 15% of the top 150 merchants, 15% of the top 150 merchants, they are enabled today. Every point of sale location nationwide for those retailers, they are enabled today to accept NFC payment. So they are already enabled in aspect of number 1, but now the effort is going on to enable those merchants not only accept payment, which is Visa, MasterCard, Discover, Amex, but also be able to accept their own version of payment as well, whether it's a prepaid card, gift card, as well as their loyalty acceptance, as well as the coupons and offer acceptance. So we can deliver much more richer experience to the consumer rather than payment only. Without being very specific, there was one country where NFC was being launched and was payment only, and the merchant basically they said, and I know some of the merchants in this hall as well. So what's in it for me if I accept payment from the mobile only? Yeah, I accept payment. I have a very different option. My consumer, they already pay. I think there is no value to me. It was awakening for them, for the carrier, as well as for this whole NFC ecosystem provider, that NFC is not payment. It is much more value added, much more value that also give a value to the merchants as well. So within that context, another value that comes in is this alternative payments as well. And clearly, because of we are not limited to the plastic anymore, when we get to have a payment instrument onto the phone. So we are seeing a lot more activities, how various different alternate payments, they will prosper because of the mobile, because of NFC. So that's another aspect of which is becoming real as well. So good news is that those things have started to be more in a production implementation and targeting for like a first half, typically by the most of the players I'm seeing around the world, whether Asia, Europe, or here in North America as well. And with these NFC phones hitting in 20 million, 40 million, or 70 million phones, whatever they may be. But one thing I would say before I end, that I'm literally seeing that most of the smartphone models, and I do not want to talk on behalf of Apple, so that's for them to talk about. Most of the smartphone models, they're going to be NFC enabled. And so when we hit the Christmas time next year, I really literally believe that most of them, it's not the 70, 80%, most of the smartphones, that's what I'm seeing on the people's roadmap.
From a WASPIT point of view, we look at what the user experience is going to be like. And it's a combination of having the user educated on what solutions are available to them, and then having that solution accepted at the retailers. I think ABI research recently suggested that by 2016, 85% of terminals worldwide would be NFC enabled. Here in the US, I understand the number of retailers that accept MasterCard PayPass is at around 130,000. So we have acceptance, and I think generally consumers are also fairly educated on how they can utilise mobile apps and how they can manage funds now via those apps. So the natural progression is to start going through to making payments using their mobile phone. Yes, we're seeing more and more NFC-enabled smartphones coming onto the market. I agree with what Khan says about the likelihood of that reaching potentially 70% of all smartphone sales by next year. But we also have the issue of how do we get the solution out there today. And that's where a lot of technology bridges, such as the RFID tags, are necessary. People say, well, why would I use an RFID tag stuck to the back of my phone if I can just use the piece of plastic that's in my wallet? And at the end of the day, what we're trying to do for the consumer is educate them, get them used to swiping that handset, get them able, I think one of the former panellists said he left home without his wallet but had his mobile phone. You know, I mean, to be able to send money to a colleague, to your son, to your wife, to be able to ask for money if you're a college student, to be able to check what your balance is, to be able to go into 7-Eleven or McDonald's and buy something. It's all down to educating the consumer and making that available to them today. I also think from a user point of view, it's got to be far more than just payments. Whether it's building in loyalty solutions, whether it's building in your driver's license, your transit cards, it's got to be far more than a payment solution. People have got to see the ability to, whether it's buy coupons via it, whether it's linking it to searching for the best deals around you. You know, I mean, these are things that once you've got the customer and if you've got the technology embedded in it, both the retailers and, I guess, the payment service providers such as ourselves can enhance the solution and provide a more, move with the evolution of the technology. That's probably what I'd say.
From the Charge Anywhere standpoint, we enable cell phones to be able to accept NFC transactions. So if you're a merchant, you're using your Google Nexus S or whichever NFC phone you happen to use. We certainly enable that. Also on the mobile wallet, or I think digital wallet perhaps is a better concept, right? The sensitive data on the cloud. We also enable NFC transactions from the issuing side. Personally, as a guy that was knocking on retailers' doors, right? I come from a different angle perhaps than the rest of this honorable panel. I was the guy going to the merchants and Mr. Merchant, buy this terminal, because, you know. And it was EMB, I remember, invented in 1970, and then the first batch came out in 1984. And if you see around how many terminals have that EMB thing. Personally, what I would say is that thank God for the mobile wallet, right, for NFC, because as a consumer, I think a lot of times as a technology provider, we lose touch of a lot of the common sense things. And you are all consumers. So if I do this, or if I do this, I will argue to say that it's kind of the same. It's really, so the premise originally was saving time. And I think the premise, thank God, changed with the phone, because now we can deliver coupons, we can do other things. So the take is yes, NFC, I think, finally found that corner that is going to allow it to go further. It is not a time-saving device. I've been listening to statistics for so many years. Like he said, the no hair, I definitely got the gray hairs with the NFC. I think I got a few with EMB too. And I even got a few from biometrics too. And we all know what happened to Pay by Touch a while ago. So yeah, I think the mobile wallet is a game changer for sure. You know, finally we found a corner to make NFC make sense. Originally just putting a tag in a card and doing this instead of this was really no advantage to the retailer, no advantage to anybody on that delivery line. So we should see this taking off right now with the mobile wallet. And again, we enable both, the issuing side and the acquiring side.
Hans, the question is, what do we think about NFC? What do we think the future is and how we're involved, right?
Yeah, the state.
I concur with Oscar, and I like the approach. I think that in a lot of cases, the payments industry can be more technologist than consumer-focused, customer service-oriented delivery. And I watch a lot of inventions looking for a market. And I think that there are a lot of technologies that solve a problem that customers don't have. In particular, around NFC, I'm concerned that if, in fact, the adoption will take 15 or 20 years, will there be, that vacuum, something will rush in to meet it if there is a pressing need, I think. And then I watch consumers and the adoption curve of these things. And I think we're all early adopters of such wonderful payment technology innovations, but there is a long, long lag time for the majority of consumers to embrace something that doesn't provide clearly overwhelming value. And I think I really enjoyed the last panel. A number of the presenters mentioned it needs a loyalty program that makes sense, that is above and beyond the loyalty program that they have today. It needs to be more convenient than they have today. And that's a pretty high bar. It's pretty convenient today. So I am cautiously optimistic that it will happen. But I do think that it's probably a little bit longer than the majority of people think.
So Mike, you want to, and maybe the panel too, take, if not NFC, so we've heard a lot from the first panel about, is SMS the lowest common denominator, and should merchants embrace that? Is this an or question? Is this 2D barcodes or SMS or NFC? Is it an and question? I mean, maybe to everyone, just take one breath on, if not NFC, what do you recommend? And do they compete versus complement? How do they fit together? Mike, you want to go first?
Thanks. I get back to what is the problem that customers need to solve, and that will probably pick the most convenient technology for it. I do think that the mobile wallet in the long term, because of the ubiquity of secure elements in phones, basically, I think that's a good call, Mohammed. By the end of next year, most phones will, the turnover rate of phones, half the phones in the country will have a secure element in them somewhere. And I think a lot of very bright people in Silicon Valley and across the country are figuring out good wallet solutions. So I think there will be some coupon loyalty program thing in most phones that will drive consumer spend along those lines. I think the terminalization barrier is very high. I think nobody wants to pay for the terminals, quite frankly. And so I don't know that it will converge at the POS very quickly. So I think there's some mobile wallet adoption, but I think the POS is the long pole in the tent.
From our standpoint, I think it's kind of core of what we do at Charge Anywhere. Again, we enable everything. So when you look at the way our company is structured, we again continue to support your regular, it's funny because now when we talk about old, we're probably talking e-commerce, right? The internet now is old. Everything is mobile. And if you happen to have mobile in your name somewhere, you're worth $2 billion. It's like a magic number, or $1.6 billion. So what we have done is that, to answer the question, is that I think as a retailer, and that has never changed really, you have to enable it all, right? So you have your regular terminals, you have your self-standing terminals, you have your e-commerce, and there are so many different transaction environments that could happen through SMS, that can happen. You're going to have unbanked populations going to your stores. They're not going to have a data plan. They're not paying for the fancy smartphone. They're paying $18 to get a prepaid phone, and they can only get SMS text messages. So if you're going to target that segment, you're going to have to do it through SMS, and we enable that as well. If you're going to do it through a smartphone, then you're going to need an application to do that, and we enable that as well. If it's going to be NFC, then welcome NFC, and that's great. Again, I think the point that I need to make, and I always stress in these things, is that we've been on this rodeo before, right? This is not our first rodeo when it comes to technology. I will repeat that date. It's 1970 when EMB was invented. It was 1984 when the first batch came out. And if you see how many people are paying in the US with EMB, you probably get a big zero, right? Then we got NFC in 2002. Philips Arena came out in 2005. They did a great release of it. I'm looking, I have statistics in here saying that 20% of the people like to pay with this since 2006 and 2007. You read today, 20% of the people prefer to pay with this. We even had biometrics back then, right? And we know all the statistics and all the empirical evidence. So the bottom line is that we have been in this path before, so now it's mobile technology, right? And the reality, you cannot close your eyes and say it's not going to happen. It's going to happen. So you have to support them all. NFC, EMB, SMS, application-based node, and of course, continue to support your regular, legacy systems that they work very well, and they will still work very well for a while.
Look, again, from a WASPIT point of view, I believe that NFC is definitely the way it's going to go, and I believe that payments will only be one part of the application that sits on that handset. Ultimately, usage of it and how quickly it is taken up will depend on how quickly the POS become NFC enabled. And I think Khan is probably one of the best to tell us why that's going to happen sooner rather than later.
Right. So I think the way I look at it, maybe it's better to take a step back, is the bigger phenomena is not NFC, bigger phenomena is mobile. Okay, I call it iPhone phenomena, started 3 years ago. When you see your 1-year-old, whether your nephew or your kid or your whoever is playing with that and really amazingly trying to do various different things. If that 1-year-old can play with that smartphone, we're going to see a broader spectrum of consumers. They're going to continue to play with smartphone. And that's exactly what's happening is, if you compare today, yourself, today versus 3 years ago, it's amazing how far we have come in using that mobile. Okay, that's, I think, is a bigger phenomenon. Okay, number two is how to make that same mobile phenomena applicable into the commerce environment in the physical store. Online e-commerce, you can do things no different than what you do on PC, better because you can do from everywhere. But the real challenge is, and real opportunity is as well, how to take that mobile and make it effective in the physical store environment. And enabling not only from a consumer point of view, convenience, better information, all of that value add that you can add for the consumer, help them to enjoy better saving, but more importantly, how to enable the merchant to influence me as a consumer as well. When I talk to the merchant, 3 things they clearly want to point out is they want to have a better loyalty, they want to have that customer visit more often, But when I'm visiting their location, they want to make sure that they upsell, cross-sell, or high-margin products, basically to get a better business out of me or so, while delivering services, while adding value. So when I'm leaving that store, I may have a bigger bag in my hand, but I'm smiling rather than I'm really taken away from me. That kind of experience, how we can deliver that thing. I think that's where what I'm seeing the activities are happening. And that's the place we're talking about cloud computing, because mobile enables that value through the cloud computing and deliver a value into the store, whether it's a payment as well. Cloud compute-based payment is coming as well. And you may have heard some of those, and alternate payment, I think, is going to get advantage of that. So that's, now how to make that mobile to be more effective in the physical store. Now, is that SMS? Yes, it can be. It has been played out. I've been watching that thing since 2001. There were a lot of different companies in Europe. Paybox is one of the leaders. Actually, that grew, and then because SMS does solve, when it comes to payment, it's such a niche market application, but it takes minutes to do a payment transaction. If you have a line long of 10 people or 12 people, and only payment is going to take a few minutes going back and forth, question, would that become a mainstream? I'm not sure. SMS would serve some of the very unique payment niche markets, absolutely would do. And it does that thing today, especially is doing a great job in various different developing countries. There is no max type payment infrastructure that exists, or no EME smart card. But people, they're doing payment there with SMS because there's no other option available, right? So now the question is, in the payment, if you just focus moment in payment only, what would become mainstream payment? So take yourself 10 years from now, or 20 years from now. Let's just be very candid. Max type is not going to be the payment device 20 years from now. That's for sure. There are a lot of limitations, a lot of fraud issues. Max type is going to evolve. Is that a smart card which you would insert? But you can't insert the phone. If the phone is going to play into the payment, then it has to be two things. One is enabling yourself to make a payment locally, and that means that mobile phone, smartphone, or whatever that form of the factor is, needs to communicate with the local point of sale. And what that technology would be. It will not be SMS because it takes minutes. Because many times the signal is not even there. So that's the place where it comes in. This NFC technology, NFC is more of a reflection of contactless technology, is what that's going to be. Whether it would deliver when you tap at the point of sale, you deliver a payment card, or you just identify yourself and the payment happens through the cloud. That would be in between the two. I'm not suggesting that every tap would be at the point of sale would be payment. You're delivering that locally. I believe that both would cloud-based payment as well as the local payment would play out. And it will, over time, is going to add the value to it. But I do see that NFC will be the mainstream payment technology, whether it's a card product or whether it's a mobile NFC product or so. And that means 80-90% of the people, they will be using that technology 20 years from now versus any other technology.
Yeah, I fully agree with Can, and to answer the comment about the technology that may take 10, 20 years to get rolled out, I don't believe on that at all. The iPhone phenomena has proven that when there is value for a consumer, 5 years ago, the iPhone was not existing. We were not doing anything except calling with your mobile devices. 5 years later, because Apple find a way to bring value to the consumer, 70% of the purchase done in store has been somehow initiated with an interaction with a smartphone, which is quite amazing. I think on the first panel somebody mentioned that comparative shopping is driving your bottom line down because you are seeing that you may buy the product at a lower cost across the street. But if with NFC or a way to interact in the store with the consumer, you happen to know that the consumer is doing that, then you have capability to keep the consumer in the store and conclude the deal in your store and not have the consumer walking away. The second point around what Can said as well is the big change is around how you use your smartphone in a retail store or in the physical world. So what NFC brings is the way to connect the physical store with the cloud services. In regards to payments, yes, this is starting by trying to transfer over your standard payment credential to a POS terminal. I'm as well a strong believer that moving forward, we'll just need to authenticate the user, connect the user with cloud-based services to do either payment, loyalty program, or whatever the service provider wants to offer to this consumer at this particular moment in the location is currently at. So we are moving towards strong authentication in the physical world to enable cloud services. That's the way it will go, not trying to mimic what has been done in the past. This will not really scale on the mobile devices. It will be too long. We have to go through a transition period where we comply or we connect the past world with the future, but moving forward, it will be going towards authentication of the user using their mobile devices.
I just want to clarify one thing. There was a confusion that NFC and EMV do not compete with each other.
Yeah, right.
You can deliver EMV transactions through NFC, and that's the direction it's going to continue to move forward as well. So I just want to clarify.
Yeah, I'm glad you addressed that because I remember that from the previous panel. So I think from the NFC forum perspective, we're going to go to questions next. I just want to, the good news is the panel strongly adopts NFC, so I'm not going to disrupt that message at all. But what I'll say from a Silicon Valley citizen, I think the smartphones is what we're now living in. That came to us now from the last 4 or 5 years. I'm sorry, all my Nokia and Symbian friends. But smartphones started from Cupertino. I think what I would say if we want to look forward is I think we're actually in a content revolution right now, not a smartphone revolution. So in other words, my daughter is 17 years old. She has an iPhone. She's looked at the other phones, but if it doesn't have Angry Birds, forget it. It's not even a conversation. She doesn't care what the OS is. She doesn't care how big the screen is. If it doesn't have her apps and her music and her email and her content is what she's trying to enable, and whatever shiny device is in the store next better support her content. And from a retailer's perspective, think about what your content strategy is in your consumer's pocket. Because if they love your store, that one-to-one relationship that apps bring you is the thing that they're going to keep looking for on their next phones versus is it Apple or is it Android or something else. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about apps and 2.0 apps that enable you to pay at the point of sale. So that's my minor commentary from that side. But why don't we open up to questions. I highly encourage you to ask some very critical, painful questions to this panel because they're very, very intelligent. And they've answered some very difficult questions in private and in public, so please go at them.
Hi there, I'm Jeremy Light from Accenture in the UK. Just a question for the panel. How does NFC compete against or compare against QR or 2D barcodes, which seem to be ubiquitous at the moment? I mean, they're on every newspaper. You see them on a lot of posters, boarding passes now are on QR codes. And I believe also the Starbucks example that Neil gave is a QR code based proposition.
So it's like two people to answer.
So first is QR code phenomenon is very important. I think it's a very fundamental. What is helping is allowing the consumer to use their existing phones to whether they're doing payment or coupons or any other engagement. Again, objective is to create the touch between your phone and the physical point of sale or any other touch point or so. Even when I do strongly believe that NFC over time, when there are a lot of NFC phones everywhere, NFC will take over on-the-go type of interaction versus the QR code because it's going to be faster. But when you are at home, where you receive a newspaper or you receive a magazine with all these ads, they're not going to be NFC-enabled tags in those newspapers. They're going to be QR code. They're going to be barcode. So QR code, barcode is going to live very, very long life, but I think that it's serving a very important purpose. It's preparing the infrastructure that NFC is going to enjoy.
Mike, you want to go give a prevailing? Because you must love both, right?
Let's see. I'm more of a buyer of these technologies than a seller, so my view with experience with QR codes is, probably a little contrarian, but I think they've kind of, personally, this is going to be on record here, but I think they've kind of crested in their utility. I've looked a lot at QR codes, and I can't get consumers. I can't figure out what's what's the magic there? I think it's a little more inconvenient than it's worth. And I think that's what our testing and the testing that I've observed in the marketing industry. Again, I speak as a buyer here, not as a seller of technology. I say the marketing industry, it's not working in the US or you'd see a lot more of them.
I'll take that. From our point of view, kind of the same thing that I answered before. If you all have the opportunity to go by the booth at some point, when we do the wallet transactions, we just enable it in 3 different ways. So when you see our wallet, because again, we understand that at some point all phones will be NFC, but they're not there today, right? And we want to be able to deploy this tomorrow. So when you look at our wallet, you have the chance to pay with an NFC, you have the chance to pay with a QR tag, and if you have a phone that happens not to even be able to do the barcode scanning, you can just input that number manually and pay that way as well. So again, going back to the fact that you have to accommodate all targets until that full conversion, if it ever happens, takes place. That's our point of view.
So just my 2 cents, and then we'll get another question. I think barcode requires a phone. I mean, we had to do the hardware improvement on the phone, and we had to do the hardware improvement on the accepting device to make barcodes possible. So we had to have high-resolution displays. We had to have optical scanners that can take a picture of a transflective display. So all the improvements that we needed for 2D barcodes is the same improvements we need for NFC. We put NFC magic in the phone, then we all talk about, well, of course, all phones have NFC. I mean, so it all depends what your timeline is. I think barcodes got the improvements they needed on the mobile side first, and they should be put to use because it teaches consumers that your phone buys coffee. That is a huge improvement. Now we're going to teach them that, hey, your phones buy jeans. Okay? Maybe we can't use 2D barcode to present that credential to buy the jeans, but we've taught the consumer that the phone can do it. So at worst case, we're going to teach the consumers how to make their phones do more in your stores.
Well, let me add something to that, because the way, and I apologize, but the way we create the barcode, by the way, is that we're understanding that not all merchants, again, talking about both sides of the equation, not all merchants are going to be ready with the terminals on the other side right now. So we put the merchant data on the cloud, and the barcode is just a poster. So it doesn't really have to go through their systems, so we don't alter the merchant environment. If you have a system that is ready, great. If you don't, then by having your poster that says pay with your phone in here, and you can take that QR tag and you get paid just the same.
Faisal Khan with Computech College. I have a question for Mr. Khan. The question is regarding TSM. The question is, if a company is in the early stages of deploying or piloting, or has gone through the pilot stage and have moved into the implementation stage, what do you recommend, sir, would be the best roadmap for them, either to build their own TSM or get a TSM product from your company or some of the other competitors that are out there?
Right. So I think that in a short manner is developing a TSM software by yourself is pretty late in my view. I think there are 4 or 5 different vendors who develop the TSM technologies, and it took years to do that thing or so. So if you want to get it to market fast over the next 1 year time frame, it's better to use somebody else's TSM technology. Now that TSM technology available in 2 forms, either as a service that you can sign up, let's say for example, Sequence Software provide a TSM service and uses TSM software itself, and or you can license the TSM software. So my recommendation would be is that if you are a mid-sized to small player, it's better to use the service and get to the market faster, and then you can always decide in future whether you want to take it on by yourself. Time to market advantage is important, and the ROI would be a lot better. I would love to sell my software to you, believe me, but I'm just paying as a neutral player I'm recommending here, and then you will be able to license as well. If you're a much bigger player, you have a bigger reasons, and there are the large issuers, large MNOs or the group of MNOs, they're taking a little different approach.
Beautiful. Well, I think that's all the time we have for this panel. I think please find these folks and ask them your more painful NFC questions when you get a chance and in private. But in the meantime, please thank the panel for their answers.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Heinz. Thank you very much.